I'm a traveling bartender in Los Angeles. I work at parties for celebrities, actors, millionaires, and so on. Ask your questions. Back in 2016, I started working as a bartender for a variety of different catering and mobile bar companies. Over time, I started getting sent to serve well-known celebrities like Matt LeBlanc, Joey from Friends, meh, Jeff Bezos, Kate Hudson, and many others as well. Tons of movie premieres, events, industry parties, and after parties with top stars. You can ask anything you want. Which celebrity did you have the best or worst experience with? The worst was Sean Penn. He's just an asshole, always rude and aggressive toward the staff. I'm 6'4", and sometimes shorter guys immediately start acting tough with me because of it. But I'm used to that. I just didn't think someone at his level would actually care so much about height. Although maybe I'm projecting, I don't know. And then there's the Kardashian mom, I don't know her name. Anyway, this was back in 2019 at the birthday party of some famous musician or something like that. I don't remember exactly. There was a fancy buffet with super expensive food and top chefs, but the seating was open. And so this Kardashian comes in with Kim and Kendall. The first thing I thought was, Kim's butt is about to explode, but that's beside the point. Kardashian's mom saw that the seating was open, and apparently she didn't like the idea of sitting with anyone else. She directly told the waiter to tell me to step away from my bar and stand by their table like a bodyguard, so that only specific people she approved of could sit there. I told the waiter that this was nonsense. I don't know how she took it, but I didn't see her for a couple of hours. Then she came up to me and said that the owner of the place had a bottle of Belvedere stashed for her at the upstairs bar and asked me to bring it to her. I said, of course, went, got myself some food, ate, went back to my bar and poured her some Grey Goose. The best one is Kate Hudson. Very chill, friendly, down to earth, just a regular person. I worked as a bartender at her Christmas party at her house in Pacific Palisades. I don't know if that house survived the fires or not. There were so many celebrities there. It turned out to be the most star-studded party I've ever been to. About 25 or 30 people whom literally everyone on the planet knows or at least has heard of. I'll remember that evening forever because Paris Hilton had a bit to drink and said I was cute. I'll remember that moment for the rest of my life. At the end of the party, she and some famous actor were discussing whether to buy some weed, and I happened to be cleaning up the bar and overheard it. I happened to have a couple of joints with me. They looked good because I bought them at a decent coffee shop, but they tasted like cheddar and I didn't want to give her a joint that tasted like cheese. Although now I regret not having the guts to embarrass myself a little for the sake of some hilarious memories in the future. Another cool experience I had was with Matt Bomer. While I was making him a cocktail, I told him that I always show my barber his photo from the TV series so I can get the same haircut. I actually showed him that photo and he mentioned that hairstyle is really hard to pull off. After that, we chatted a bit more and I ended up getting fired from my job for it. Someone from the place where I worked said that I was becoming far too familiar with high-profile guests. Such a bummer. Who turned out to be the most disgusting drunk and what did they do? This is one of my favorite stories. I was working as a bartender at Brian Lord's New Year's Eve party in 2018. He's one of the heads of CA, and I was pouring Casamigos for various guests I didn't know. And then George Clooney himself came over and started joking around with some older rocker. He said something like, "Don't pour for him, he just got out of rehab." Then he asked for a shot of that tequila himself. I poured him a strong shot. He laughed, said I didn't know how to pour, and just took the bottle from me. He was already pretty drunk by that point, and of course bartenders aren't supposed to hand out bottles to guests. But it's George Clooney, and it's literally his own brand of tequila. Most likely it was actually his personal tequila because he usually brings 5 or 6 cases of Casamigos to parties. Who turned out to be the most arrogant? Orlando fucking Bloom. I was a bartender at a party thrown by Stella McCartney, Paul McCartney's daughter, at the old Amoeba store on Sunset. Marilyn Manson and Johnny Depp performed there. The waiters asked me to help clear the glasses, so imagine 5 grown men carrying heavy trays all heading straight to the kitchen. This guy sees us, completely ignores us, and then starts a full 2-minute photo shoot with another person right there in the hallway leading to the kitchen where we need to take our trays. We stood and stupidly watched as they took photos. It was about 10 years ago, but I still remember his arrogance. Who is the most beautiful in real life? Natalie Emmanuel. She was at the Parker Hotel in Palm Springs for a Louis Vuitton party. My God, she was incredibly beautiful. At that time, I was working as a waiter, standing with a tray of white wine and champagne and simply greeting guests. She comes in and I just can't look anywhere else. Time seemed to stand still. I looked at her face like a blind man seeing a sunset for the first time. She glanced over at me, walked a little bit further, looked back again, and my heart stopped. Then she walked a bit more and looked back once more. And only then did she leave the lobby. Never before in my entire life have I felt so incredibly flattered and anxious at the same exact time. She was still not very far away when my tray was finally empty. And so I approached her, very shyly apologized for staring at her. I said that I just couldn't take my eyes off her. She said something like, "Oh, that's so sweet." And I literally replied, "Bye," turned around 180 degrees and ran back to the kitchen. There were thousands of people at that party and we crossed paths briefly one more time, but I still think about it. I didn't have enough experience or courage to keep the conversation going, but when I feel ugly, old, or just down, I remember her and that evening. That's usually enough to keep me from getting discouraged and to move forward. I even kept 3 candles from that party to somehow capture that evening. It sounds like she liked you, doesn't it? Yes, that's exactly it. I was sure she liked me, but I was just an ordinary waiter, and she was already acting in Game of Thrones. She didn't act like a stuck-up star at all. She once went to a yoga class at a friend's place. He said she was very down-to-earth and friendly. Basically, I messed up myself, deciding that my lack of experience would ruin everything, and it was better to back out right away than to cringe about it for the rest of my life. The more I think about it, the more I realize I'm just an ordinary coward. Judging by my experience selling booze, I can say that sometimes the richest people know the least about alcohol. Can you tell us a bit about the tastes of some celebrities? Whose order pleasantly surprised you? Were there any who turned out to be simpler than you would have expected? For many, it's just stupid hangers-on. For example, Kim Kardashian's mother supposedly only drinks Belvedere, but she didn't notice a single thing when she drank my Grey Goose disguised as Belvedere. Joey from Friends is known to absolutely love mojitos, and bartenders hate making them. Oh, I just remembered a funny story. It was my second time working for Bezos. His company had just finished filming Manchester by the Sea and threw a huge celebration at his house. Being a true Scotch enthusiast, he wanted to have not only bars, but also a dedicated Scotch cart. They put me in charge of the Scotch, but I was also supposed to talk about the Scotch. I don't drink myself, and he had drinks from all 5 regions of Scotland. I printed out a bunch of materials to study. It turned out to be a lot of fun. And then Ron Swanson himself walks in without his mustache with his wife. The bars are packed and I'm empty. I think this is my moment. This noble fictional whiskey connoisseur comes up to me and just asks for a glass of water to dilute the Scotch a bit and open up the flavor. I'm standing there thinking, damn it, are you seriously going to shave me off like this? But of course I smiled and poured him some water, lol. Yeah, I also like telling the story about Bezos' love for Scotch. He's just obsessed with it, so naturally, he has a bunch of different bottles ranging from $40 to $8,000, and he was genuinely interested in all of them. The most expensive bottle was some kind of 44-year-old Scotch, something like Bunnahabhain or something like that. Impossible to pronounce. I emptied a 10-ounce tonic bottle, rinsed it out, and poured myself a sample of that Scotch. Accidentally, of course. Which celebrities get high on something? There is no one who actually does it openly. Or maybe I'm just too naive and don't notice. Funny story. There was this guy at a Coachella after-party that I liked chatting with. I was pouring him tequila. The event was sponsored, free bottles, nobody was keeping track. And I said, if you give me a little baggie, I'll give you a bottle of this tequila for free. Just make sure it's discreet. He goes, thanks. If I actually had a baggie, I'd hand it over to you even without the bottle. And I'm confused, so I repeat. All you need to do is find a baggie and I'll give you the bottle. He repeats his line again. After a couple of rounds like this, I finally realized that he thought I was asking him for a baggie of Coke. I told him, no, dude, just find a plastic bag. I laughed about it for a long time afterward, feeling like a 13-year-old kid at an adult party where everyone speaks their own language. And the funniest part is, I was actually older than that guy. Considering that you're in Los Angeles, how much do you think your appearance played a role in getting those private gigs? I get that you have to be a good bartender, but that part of California just seems so superficial. Appearance is very important. It's just as important as having a good business card. It helped me get in, but the door stayed open because of my charisma and the way I dress. A lot of bartenders wear black sneakers, black jeans, a wrinkled shirt, and just don't care at all. My friendliness and professionalism. Contrary to popular belief, a good bartender is someone who makes guests feel good, ensures they receive quality service, and makes them feel welcome. This means you need to pour drinks quickly, consistently, and with a smile or friendly but not fake chatter. At the same time, you have to keep the bar area tidy. It's not necessary to know the exact proportions of cocktails or be able to make a million different drinks. If you don't know a recipe, you can turn it into a fun experience. Find the recipe together with the guest or come up with something on the spot. I was fired many times before I figured out how everything works. But yes, appearance matters a lot. Some people simply don't hire unattractive employees for such positions at all. They won't ever say it directly to your face, but I've personally heard owners discussing potential employees. Have you ever had any truly memorable stories involving unusual rich people? Not just famous celebrities, but like some random multimillionaire who doesn't even seem to understand how he ended up hanging out where all the celebrities are. Yes, I always tell this particular story. There's this really cool real estate billionaire named Mike. He's about 50 or 60 years old and he's an absolutely down-to-earth person. He lives with his family in a huge mansion on San Vicente Boulevard. He has a golf course in his yard, but inside he's still just a regular working guy. I'm serious. He used to throw Super Bowl parties for about 350 people with a $50,000 budget just for alcohol. Plus, there was expensive stadium food like gourmet hot dogs and pretzels. My boss was friends with him. One time after the Super Bowl, he was in a very playful mood and we were tossing a football back and forth, while my boss yelled at both of us like we were naughty kids. It was funny, Lowell. When he showed me his car collection, he was as happy as a kid. And when we went down to his private underground wine cellar with its own tasting room, he would show me a $25 bottle of wine with a label that simply said, "So fucking good," giggle to himself, and ask if I actually got the joke, Lowell. He absolutely loved tequila, and one time he offered me a generous shot of some incredibly rare, exclusive, and expensive tequila, but I turned it down, and I think it made him feel a little bit upset. It was only my second year working as a professional bartender, and I was still so incredibly uptight around high-profile clients of that level. It was like I treated them differently, with a different attitude. Over time, I learned to adjust to the energy I pick up from people, but that situation still sticks in my mind. He was trying to be warm and friendly while I was just an incredibly stiff worker, who left the biggest and the smallest tips. The smallest is 0. And honestly, I don't like to think about those who don't leave tips. It's a voluntary choice, and I already make enough money to live comfortably and attend exclusive social parties I wouldn't otherwise get into. And the biggest tip wasn't from some celebrity, but from what seemed to be a producer or someone like that. It happened at the upscale restaurant Crustacean in Beverly Hills. The guy ordered 7 shots of Hennessy Paradise for himself and his group. Back in the year 2016, every single shot cost him $250. And he tipped me a total of $1,700 for pouring those drinks in just 2 minutes. Granted, I split that money 4 ways because there were 4 of us behind the bar, but still. How did you get this job? Did you feel genuinely excited at first, or did you act perfectly calm right away? I started out as a bartender at a bunch of catering companies, then ended up at one that worked with very prestigious high-end chefs, and those kinds of companies either hire bartenders or have their own. Over time, they got bigger, and celebrities in Los Angeles throw a lot of parties, and some of them like to experiment with new things. Was I shocked? Of course, but I know how to keep my composure, although sometimes, of course, I totally fanboy. And now I cringe every time I remember it. I was bartending at Kristen Wiig's private party right after the release of the movie Mother. And I still try my very best not to think about the awkward things I said to her and her boyfriend. I complimented her in such an awkward way. At the time it seemed normal, but now, ugh. What kinds of requests have you had to turn down? Usually it's, let's have a drink together, but I don't drink at all. Or give me a bottle. But it depends on the venue and the owner. After a couple of years, I realized that although officially you're not allowed to hand out bottles, most of the time it's just easier to give it away and then say the guest grabbed it themselves while I looked away. But the owners don't care about that at all, and rarely does anyone actually ask for a bottle. Out of all these celebrities, who would you like to be friends with, or who do you think would be the ideal friend? I haven't had a real conversation with any of them for any significant period of time, so I can only form an educated guess based on my impression of the public image and persona they project in the media. But just by the vibe, not considering their wealth or connections, I'd say Johnny Knoxville. That would be a win on all fronts. You could go to red carpet events, to rodeos, or anywhere else you can imagine. He's been everywhere, and he really seems like a very chill guy with whom you don't feel any pressure to act a certain way or do anything specific. And besides, he likes pranks just like I do, so we'd be joking around with each other and having an incredible blast together, creating tons of cool and fun memories. How much do you make in a night? Do you get good tips? Well, yeah, the tips are decent. Jeff Bezos once left a $200 tip, LOL. But my more prideful side thinks he could have given even more, considering he was number 8 on the list of the wealthiest people in the world at the time. On a typical night, I usually make about $400 to $600 for 6 to 10 hours of work. $200, seriously? That's it? Damn. Yeah, I laughed at that too, but honestly, that's above my average tip. Plus, most likely it was his assistant who left it. He doesn't personally organize any of the events or manage the payments himself, so I really don't blame him. Bucky, have you ever visibly geeked out over meeting a celebrity? Yeah, it happened when Leonardo DiCaprio just casually parked himself at my bar and spent half an hour talking with some elderly lady about some guy. He was at most a couple of meters away from me. It was hard not to stare because I'm so used to seeing him on screen. Damn, the first movie I ever saw in a theater was Titanic. But in the end, I forgot he was even there because some other celebrity distracted me. Honestly, I think it was Katy Perry, who was drunkenly dancing provocatively on a table while Orlando Bloom was filming her. It sounds made up, but out of thousands of events, this was honestly the craziest night in every way. For starters, I was working as a bartender at a party with 30 top-tier celebrities. Elon Musk was there with Grimes. There was a ton of celebrity craziness going on. Paris Hilton got drunk and told me I was cute. Maybe I'm wrong, but it seemed like Dua Lipa was flirting with me with her eyes too. Leo remained standing right there beside me for half an hour, and then the company that hired me failed to pay me the $1,000. I sent a message to Kate Hudson's assistant, and she personally gave me the money back after Kate found out what happened. That had never happened before. I was always paid on time. I still think about that night sometimes. I'm afraid that was my peak. Oh, and I served Johnny Knoxville several times. I was always amazed by him. The guy always tips 20 bucks no matter what he orders, always a 20. I love that guy. I regret not keeping one of his 20s for myself. What was the coolest, most luxurious house or party where you worked as a bartender? In this context, luxurious and cool are two different things. I was a bartender at the house of the daughter of the owner of Formula One or something like that. $120 million house in Beverly Hills, probably the biggest one there. 18 bedrooms or something like that. Luxurious, yes, but not cool. And I also worked at the wedding of the daughter of the inventor of Hot Pockets. Now that was luxury to the max. But the coolest parties were at Joey's, Matt LeBlanc's place. I was a bartender at his 50th birthday and at the house of Brian Lord, the head of CAA. Joey has 3 Porsche-style garages, 8 or 9 Porsches, tons of Porsche merch, a wine cellar, a safe, a gorgeous view of the 405 in Ventura, but the furniture looks like it's from 2005. Brian has an incredible house, a movie theater for 30 people, of course, and overall the atmosphere and the level are just out of this world. He's the head of the largest talent agency in the world. Of course, his house is top-notch, and I've seen so many A-list actors there, it's just insane. What's the craziest thing you've seen? Oh, I know. I think in 2019, Cardi B gave Offset $500,000 in cash, 25,000 of which were in $1 bills, so he could throw them around at a strip club. They started somewhere else and then came to my bar. I had to leave because literally everything was covered in dollar bills and they were all new bills. The whole room smelled like wet cardboard, and she also ordered him a mountain of Popeye's chicken sandwiches, at least 500 of them. It was a whole pyramid. At that time, they were sold out everywhere, but she managed to get 500. Do you have any stories about musicians? Dua Lipa loves margaritas, and in real life she's actually quite shy. Katy Perry likes to dance a little provocatively on tables after a couple of drinks, lol. And besides that, does Paris Hilton count as a singer? Haha, just kidding. But she had a bit to drink and told me I was cute. That was nice. I also met Tanel before she became famous, and we almost started dating. I regret not taking it further. I can't really remember anything else interesting with singers. Has Diddy ever been one of your clients? No, I hope not. Honestly, I'm both relieved and yet somewhat disappointed that I wasn't his bartender, because if Cassie had asked me to stay, I would have stayed right there. Did any of those celebrities have any interesting or cool pets? Good question. Yes, but I didn't encounter that while working as a bartender. Mark Pellegrino has a very old blind dog. He takes care of her like she's his child. It's so sweet. I was an assistant on a film shoot and he brought her with him. Other than that, no. They usually keep their pets away so they won't be disturbed. Well, surely you hooked up with one of the celebrities. Alas, no. I may look okay, but I don't have the right social skills. Plus, I don't drink, so it's like giving a Lamborghini to a monkey. It might look cool, but the monkey will just crap on the seat and rip off the steering wheel instead of driving around and picking up girls. I'd like to hear your opinion. I worked as a bartender for many years, and although I sometimes drink in company, it was actually bartending that taught me a lot about sobriety and that drinking isn't necessary. I'm not asking about your reasons for not drinking, that's your personal business. But would you agree that being around alcohol and people who are drinking helps you abstain? It definitely helped me. I quit drinking when I was 18, long before I started working as a bartender. I had a friend who quit at that time because alcohol affects the brain, and I, being young and impressionable, followed his example and have stuck with it ever since. It's true that at 27 I started smoking weed, but I think it affects me less than alcohol would have. I've never met any celebrities. Any advice for the future in case I ever do? I had a friend who used to act in the TV series Santa Barbara. He said he met Jack Nicholson many different times, and Jack told him something he'll never forget. It's quite difficult to be me, because for most people, it's one of the most memorable days of their lives. But for me, it's just a regular Wednesday. I think about that a lot. I think you should approach them like they're just a really cool older brother's friend. Don't put them on too high a pedestal. It makes them uncomfortable. But having a friendly, fun chat about their work for a little while can actually amuse them too. And what about non-disclosure agreements? There never were any, only when new technologies came out, like the Tesla Semi, Tesla Roadster, and the Rolls-Royce that was released sometime between 2016 and 2019. I think if they were doing something truly worthy of an NDA, they'd be hiring staff differently. Not on topic, but I've wanted to learn how to mix drinks for a long time, just as a hobby. What advice can you give to a beginner? Yeah, it's pretty cool. Buy all the basic spirits. Vodka, gin, tequila, rum, whiskey, and a couple of liqueurs, plus some juices and sodas, and just experiment. It's not as strict as with food. You can mess up and it'll still turn out tasty. Honestly, the best way is just to stock up on everything I mentioned.